Welcome back to episode 19 of the Talkin ATL Hawks. I am John Joyner, and along with my co-host, Mr. Andrew and Chase Jefferson. Fellas, how you doing?
I'm feeling great because my Hawks just got a win against the 76ers. Though it was a depleted 76ers team without Trae Young and without Karis LeVert, it was fun to see the young guys and the guys coming off the bench getting more minutes like Keaton Wallace. Vic came back. It's his first game on the court since February 10th. He hit 2 threes, but pretty much everybody contributed. We had 6 players scoring double figures, 25 from Dyson. Terrence Mann had the best game he's ever had as an Atlanta Hawk. Mo Gay was knocking down some threes. Just very efficient shooting. Just a great display of team basketball. We kind of fell asleep a little bit in the fourth quarter. We kind of was scrambling to get out of there alive in the last 2 minutes or so. But
that was because of one person and one person only on the 76ers.
I'll tell you what, man. But but nonetheless, we survived. We've got our 4th win in the last 5 games. We're now 4-1 in the month of March, or 4-1 in the month of March, and everything's coming together. The Heat lost, the Magic lost. We're now a game and a half above those teams to the first place in the Southeastern Conference.
Not to mention that the Pacers are currently on a 3-game losing streak, and the Pacers hold the 5th spot in the East. So we have made up 3 games on the Pacers here within this past week. So that's very huge.
We just need the Pistons to start losing, man. If the Pistons start losing, and with the easy schedule that the Hawks have coming up for the rest of the week, we will be in prime position heading into that game on the road against the Hornets next week. We'll be in prime position to be fighting for that 16, man.
But as for me, of course, y'all know I wasn't in last episode. I worked that night.
Hey, welcome back.
We were recording Monday night. I had to work, unfortunately, but I'm back tonight, back with the crew. I'm excited to talk about some Hawks basketball because, like Andrew mentioned, we are playing some good ball. We finally have some good things to talk about. But before we begin, Joyner, of course, as we start these episodes, have a start bench cut. He notified us before we recorded that this one's going to be a banger. So, Joyner, let's hear it, man.
So as y'all know, I'm ahead of basketball tournament this weekend.
Yes, sir.
My elite shooting stats of going around 0 for 6 this entire weekend. I didn't make a single shot.
Hey, shoot or shoot, man. Shoot or shoot.
I heard you punch somebody, though, so at least you were physical, Joyner.
I decided to do a start bench cut of Atlanta Hawks' best shooters of all time.
Ooh, there's got to be one person on that list, man. There's got to be one person on that list.
I'm gonna go start. I'm gonna go the list of my list is of course Trae Young. I'm gonna have him on there. Pistol Pete Maravich.
This is gonna be tough. I can already tell.
If he throws any of my things to the throw in, I'm gonna have a hard time.
And if y'all remember episode 1, who I said my favorite all-time Hawk was, y'all know who I'm gonna go with. Number 26, Kyle Korver.
Oh God, this is a hard. Okay, I have my answer. Okay. This is. Who's gonna go first?
You have your answer, so you go right ahead, buddy.
Yeah, Chase, you go first. Okay. Just want to go first since you missed last episode.
Okay. I appreciate it. Fair enough. Joyner, that is a banger. I'm not gonna lie. This is a really tough one.
This is a thinker, man. This gets your brain going.
I didn't want to add Trae Young because he's a current player, but I really couldn't think of any other great 3-point shooters that the Hawks had. So I just went basic. My bad on that. But
no, that's a great list. That's a really great list. And if we're talking about just plain shooting, like in my mind, I'm just thinking about just plain shooters, and I think number 1 on that list has to be none other than the Thrazeus, Kyle Korver. And I'll explain why I'm going to start him. Now, keep in mind, we'll go on just straight off the shooting. And then, of course, you can say Trae Young. He's already climbing the list. He's already well on pace. By some, to me personally, I think he's the greatest in terms of scoring the Hawks have ever had. But we're not talking about just scoring because though Trae Young is a lethal shooter from the outside, a lot of his points also come from the inside, and that takes a lot of finesse and skill. But when you're talking about just straight up spot-up shooting, there was no other spot shooter, not just in Hawks history, but in NBA history. Because remember, Kyle Korver is still in the top 10 for most threes made in an NBA career.
Yeah, I think when I was he's number 7. I think he might have dropped down recently, but
he dropped down.
He's around that.
He's number 8. He's number 8. He got passed by James Harden earlier this year, so he's now number 8.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and of course, he spent his time with the Sixers, the Bulls, the Hawks, the Jazz, and the Cavs. Most notably, in the Bucks. You're right. He was on the Bucks.
His career in Milwaukee.
You're right. I forgot about that. But he's most notably known for his time in Atlanta. And we all remember the most famous thing we do was set a screen at the top of the key, let Korver come around, easy catch and shoot on the move, and it worked every single time. There is no other man the Hawks have had in their history that you can rely on to make a shot, specifically a three-pointer, than Kyle Korver. But, of course, I just ranted about the man right behind him. Trae Young's number 2 on that list. And, of course, he's I think, the best deep-range shooter that the Atlanta Hawks have ever had. If you want to count inside scoring too, I mean, Trae's floater game has been unreal. But no disrespect to the man, Pistol Pete Maravich, who wrapped that gorgeous blue and neon green Hawks jerseys back.
I wouldn't call it gorgeous, but
it was unique.
It's one of the jerseys of all time.
Yeah, it's not my favorite Hawks jersey of all time, but it's still pretty good.
Love it. Love it or hate it, it's unique. And, of course, shooting wasn't necessarily the main style of basketball back in his day, but Pete Maravich is known as the man to help transition the league to more of a shooter-type league. So, obviously, when you're kind of known to help with that transition, obviously you are a great shooter. And there's a reason his jersey is retired in the rafters at State Farm Arena. One of the greatest Hawks of all time, one of the greatest NBA players of all time, one of the best shooters of all time. But I think just because of the lack of shooting during his period, obviously that's not something that was most well known, something that he didn't do as consistently as a Trae and a Kyle Korver, which is why I'm cutting him. But no disrespect to Pete Maravich at all. But who do y'all have, fellas?
So I'm gonna go alongside you, Chase. There, I think. When we are just basing this off the pure shooting ability, and if you have any doubt in our mind as to why Chase and I has picked Kyle Korver for our number 1, just go look at his 200 plus 3-point season back in 2015-2016. Go look at his 11 points in a minute clip against the Milwaukee Bucks back in 2016. It was 11 points. Back in 2016. It's 11 points because one of the threes ended up being a 2-point. I didn't either. I recently found that out. So it's actually 11 points. But nonetheless, it's a terrific clip to go watch. One of the most popular heat checks in NBA history. So just go look at that. Just a spot-up shooter. Didn't matter if it was contested. Didn't matter if it had a little range on it. Didn't matter if it was on off the screen while moving. He always found nothing but the net. I mean, he just had this terrific ability to just one of the most pure shooting motion or shooting shots, and I think league history as well. He's just as down to the basics as it gets, just knocking down every three, every opportunity that he had, and he was clutch with it, man. I mean, when that guy got hot, there was no cooling it down. I remember playoff series against the Celtics, man. Mm-hmm. It was game 2 of that series in Atlanta. My goodness, in that first half, Kyle Korver dropped almost 30 based off the three-point line alone. And then, of course, you go look at his very first year in the NBA. He established that play style immediately, made the three-point contest with the Sixers, had one of the best three-point contest performances in that year, 2000.
As a rookie.
And, yeah, so easily Korver number 1, Trae number 2. I mean, yes, if you were just talking about as a general basketball player, I think Trae Young is the greatest Atlanta Hawk of all time.
I think so too.
Even though he's only a 7th-year pro,
I think so too.
He's just already stepped up on that pedestal. He's clutch. He's shifty. He's got finesse. He's got movement. He's got his contact finishing is superb. Playmaking. I know this is what we're talking about, but don't even get me started when it comes to playmaking. I think he's top 3 playmakers in the league right now. You can make the case for number 1. And then at number 3, yes, Pistol Pete. I think Chase said it perfectly. Back in his era, shooting was not as prominent as it is now. Playmaking was definitely the main course when it came to on-court game plan. But they called him Pistol Pete because every time he shot, he'd put up the pistols. That was just part of his shot. And, it kind of just stuck with him. And he was a great player for the Utah Jazz.
Yes.
Several his jerseys also retired with the Utah Jazz.
Sure
so that's 2 jersey retirements for 2 different organizations. I think that goes without saying how great of a player he was. But when you compare him side by side with Trey's numbers, Korver's numbers, they're just not as high because that just wasn't the motive of the game back then.
Right.
So Chase, I thought we were going to disagree there. I thought you were going to go Trey number 1, but we are in a line with each other. But Joyner, are you gonna come join our group over here, or are you gonna stand alone on your own island?
I was not going to, but I am going to agree. I am going to. I was going to cut Trae Young and bench Pistol Pete because because it was the legendary stats, because he has his jersey retired by us. But since y'all mentioned, but since you guys did mention that shooting threes wasn't the norm back then, and it's now become a normal thing now, due to the guys like Kyle Korver and Trae Young, I'm going to. I'm gonna bench Pistol Pete. I'm gonna bench Kyle Korver. I'm kidding. I'm benching Trae Young and I'm starting Kyle Korver.
Let's go.
I go to fail to mention 2 vital things about Kyle Korver.
Let's hear it.
I was gonna think. One, you didn't mention that Kyle Korver was an All-Star in 2016.
Oh yeah, of course.
Oh yeah, right.
He was an All-Star, and he was a vital part of that 17-game win streak.
Yes, he was. 19-game win streak, I believe. Didn't the streak break at 19?
I think 17. It was one of those. It was one of those.
You're right. So we won 17 games, and that broke the Atlanta Hawks record. But then we won 2 more after that. Okay, I was gonna say, I remember we lost to the Bucks, and we were 1 game away from 20. And I was really pissed off about that game.
I think it was like 17. I think it was like 17 throughout the month of January. That's what I'm thinking of. Okay.
Right.
Yes,
okay.
That is what it was. We won all 17 games in January. That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Okay. That's what I'm getting the number 17 from. Okay. But yeah, no, like I mean, like Trae Young, like obviously, like he's a great three-point shooter, but he hasn't I don't want to say he hasn't had like a good impact in Atlanta like these other 2 guys have, but Korver's Korver's done more for Atlanta so far than Trey. Like I'm not knocking on Trey, but right. But Korver, like I mentioned, he did compete in the 3-point contest as a rookie, which even though it wasn't for Atlanta, that's not impressive. We're talking about 3-point shooters here.
You don't see that a lot.
That's impressive.
No.
But yeah, now, but now, guys, we're gonna sweep here. So I believe we all have Kyle Korver starting, Trae Young off the bench, and then we're gonna cut Pistol Pete, respectively. But
good start being Coach Joyner. That led to a really good discussion there.
That was.
With that being said, let's get into the week's games.
That's what we're here for, baby.
So, Joyner, if you want to go ahead and lead us off on the game that happened Tuesday night, where the Bucks came into Atlanta, Joyner, what happened there?
Yeah, so unfortunately, me and Andrew were talking about this game. Yep. Chase, you missed this, but I don't know if you're aware, but Bobby Portis was suspended for 25 games from Milwaukee for it was so basically what happened was their assistant coach gave Bobby a painkiller medicine that had some banned substance, but had a similar name to what Bobby has been taking. So
It'd be your own people.
So basically, it was just like an error from the assistant coach, but ultimately that cost Bobby Portis to be suspended for 25 games. So
kind of like a Tyrod Taylor situation, It's like your trainers are the reason you're not on the court right now. How insane is that?
I'm sure Teddy Bridgewater would have taken a suspension over an impelled long. But
that was Tyrod Taylor, not Bridgewater.
You said so
it was Tyrod Taylor, not Bridgewater. Tyrod Taylor.
Yeah.
The quarterback?
Yeah.
You said Bridgewater.
I said Taylor.
No, you said
Did
Bridgewater.
I? Okay,
We got that. We got that.
We'll,
We clip it.
We'll go
Clip
back
it.
and roll the tapes.
It's not important. We're not a football podcast. But sorry, Jordan, go ahead.
But anyways, they did not have Bobby Portis, so their starters were Tarian Prince, Giannis, of course, Kuzma, Brook Lopez, and Damian Lillard. And Giannis was the big factor for this game, dropping a triple double of 26 points, 12 rebounds, 10 assists.
Who would have seen that coming?
Yeah, basically their entire starting lineup besides Tarian Prince did solid. Kuzma was 17, Brook Lopez with 13, and Damian Lillard with 23. Their bench unit did pretty solid with Kevin Porter Jr. With 15 and Gary Trent Jr. with 15 as well. And our starters were Mohamed Gay, Trae Young, Dyson Daniels, Zachary Riche, and Okongwu. The factor for this one, to me, a big reason why the Hawks might have lost the game is Zachary did not have the best night shooting. He shot 3 for 10 and 1 for 6 from 3.
Yeah.
But like me and like we said, like all year, like he's a rookie. He's gonna have his ups and downs as a player. It's only up from here for him. But yeah, what are your thoughts on this game?
Well, he had a phenomenal month of February.
Yeah.
So to start off the month of March and have a cold game, it's forgivable because, like I said, that month of February was a really big step forward in his young career. But let's go back to the Bucks. What an acquisition Kyle Kuzma has been for this Bucks team. And Kyle Kuzma has always been a guy that's been underlooked since his Lakers days. I mean, he was kind of stuck in a really bad Washington Wizards organization, but he was still putting up great numbers.
This is the first time he's been on a team that is actually known as a competitor. I think because of that, people are finally able to look at Kuzma and see that this is the type of player they've been holding back for so many years.
And I'm excited that we get a chance to see playoff Kuzma, especially when he's in the likes of Giannis, a playmaker like Damian Lillard, and even Brook Lopez, a well-seasoned vet in the paint, that a really good rebounder as well. And then you got Taurean Prince, move past that. Love you, Prince, but you're not a baller. But yeah, and this was just a back-and-forth game. Really, no team caught a big lead. The Bucks kind of pulled away in the final 3 minutes. But, man, what a down-to-the-wire finish it was in Atlanta. This would have been to start off the month 2-0 because this was coming off that Karis LeVert buzzer beater that happened in Memphis. And Karis LeVert dropped 21 off the bench alongside of Terrence Mann, who dropped 12, but I mean, good Lord, Karis LeVert did not start in this hot spurt. He shot 8 for 13, got 29 minutes off the bench. He had more minutes than Zachary and Mohamed Gay and Okongwu. That's more minutes than 3 starters. And why would you not get that many minutes when he's out there getting you buckets, especially during crunch time? So that was fun to see. We did fall short, but it's kind of hard to defend Giannis down the stretch because Giannis is a guy, he's always been the guy that when he wants to take over a ball game, he freaking will.
Absolutely.
And he's a freight train when he's running in the paint, when he's got any kind of momentum. And that's kind of what the Bucks did, just fed him a lot during transition fast breaks in that fourth quarter, and that led to a lot of easy buckets. That led to him drawing fouls. And, yeah, so tough loss, but it was a hard-fought battle. So not really want to hang your head low on.
I do want to mention that I think another thing that kind of held the Hawks back tonight was, Joyner, going back to you, like what you mentioned is Giannis, superb game, 50%, 12 rebounds, 10 assists, 26-point triple-double. But the reason, obviously, as Giannis does, he's dominated inside. But what kind of led him to do this a little more easier than other nights was that no Clint Capella. Now, don't get me wrong. We did have a Nneka Okongwu who played solid defense inside, but we also had Mohamed Gay to help. And no shade to Mohamed Gay. He's a growing defender in this league, especially recently. This month alone has played some amazing defense. But when you have that young of a guy who's really now just starting to get grown to the league, going against Giannis, who's been an inside dominant scorer for years. Not saying you're a bad defender, but that's a hard matchup to go against.
Great learning curve, though. Great learning curve.
Great learning curve. But obviously, as we know, Giannis won the battle many times when he was going against Mohamed Gay in the paint. So I think having Clint Capella, a way more experienced defender than Muhammad, then a Kongwu by a couple years, but especially Muhammad Gay, I think definitely would have helped in this case. But even with Capella's absence, the Hawks still played a great game. But that was because they're able to pull up 121 offensively. But of course, 127 is assigned to a poor defensive game. But Andrew, if we're going to shift the focus to you now, the Hawks, after this loss in Milwaukee, was looking at a back-to-back matchup at home against the Indiana Pacers. The first one this past Thursday night. What happened there? Well, when you're looking at the Eastern Conference standings, the Hawks team that was currently looming at the 8th spot right now, Pacers sitting at the 5th spot. Really, the Pacers and the Pistons, who hold the 5th and 6th seed right now, are very close with one another. And the Hawks, who are sitting at the 8th seed at this time, was on the outside looking in when it came to those top 6 seeds if you want to avoid the play-in tournament. And even though we're in the early stages of March, this is a reality that the Hawks can go out there and grab if we continue to stay hot. And with a team that will win well contingent with, like the Pacers, coming back-to-back in Atlanta, the Hawks really need to sweep this back-to-back. And what a great start it was to that back-to-back. I mean, the Hawks just beautiful display of consistent offense. We saw us drop almost 130 against the Bucks, and we came out here and dropped 124. And the Pacers, I mean, they're right with us. Pascal Siakam, my goodness. I mean, I know there's all those conversations about Siakam. He should have gone in the All-Star game over Trae Young, which I still do believe that. But ever since the All-Star game, Pascal Siakam has been a takeover machine. And that's what we saw in the fourth quarter. He shot 12 for 18. He's got three-point range, shot 3 for 5 from beyond the arc. 35 points, and he was in board minutes, 9 boards, and he had, 3 assists to go along with it, just a little flair playmaking. But then we saw 4 of the 5 starting 5 get into double figures. You had a 21-point game from Neesmith, 17 from Miles Turner, 15 from Nebenhard. He's a great, fantastic shooter, by the way. He's one of the most underrated in the league. He's kind of got that gorgeous name play style to him. Just got he's a big body guy that can just really knock down from deep. And TJ McConnell, the vet off the bench, only held to 9 points. Really, the Hawks contained the Pacers very well. They only had 4 guys coming off the bench because they had a lot of injured players. So this is really an injured, riddled Pacers team because, of course, Tyrese Halliburton, he hasn't really gotten a lot of playing time in the recent weeks because of that hip strain that he's been dealing with. So he wasn't in either game of the back-to-back, which the Hawks really took advantage of. You had a 22.9 from Trae Young, and though he shot 7 for 17 from the field, my goodness, those 16 assists really held his own when he was dishing the ball out inside to guys like a Kongwu with the pick-and-roll lob. Dyson Daniels was getting some three-point shots down, had 17. Zachary Richardson, still a little quiet night, 11 points, but much better, 4 for 9 shooting, 3 for 3 from the three-point line. But then, let me pivot back. Gorgeous Niang, 24 points off the bench on a Hawks bench who also only played 4 players. So kind of really even lineup for both the Hawks and the Pacers here. But Gorgeous Niang scored, I think, 9 of his 24 in that fourth quarter, hitting back-to-back threes in the final 3 minutes that really set the Hawks win in motion. And those were another 2 beautiful dishes from Trae Young. And that's how, he uses that intense playmaking ability to drive inside and find the dish out when Gorgeous Niang was open from the corner, open from the wing, and that's what we really saw. And again, it's just the Hawks really finding ways to finish out close ball games, and it was a big win for the Hawks winning that first of the back-to-back. But Joyner, I'm going to give it to you before we give it to Chase. What did you like in this game watching it as a Hawks fan?
With Tyrese Halliburton being out, and with Matthew also being out, I think we really took advantage of this injury depleted team. Like you said, like Gorgeous Niang shooting 10 for 15 from the field, off the bench. That's amazing. Karis LeVert had a quiet night with only 8 points, but just coming off a amazing game against the Bucks. You just have a general quiet off night, but I think defense played a big factor in this game too. With um. Oh yeah, yeah. I think defense played a big a big factor with Gay's steals too. Like he had 3 steals as a center. That's incredible. Like as a center,
Yeah,
like
no, that really is impressive.
but yeah, Trey Young's double. I mean, like we mentioned earlier, he could do it all. Just a good solid win for the Hawks.
Absolutely. And I think before we move on to the next game, I want to talk about something that I think was the biggest piece of the Hawks win this game that we haven't even thought about. Look how bad the Hawks bench outscored the Pacers bench. Andrew, you mentioned it. Mm-hmm. This was kind of an even situation for both teams, both dealing with a couple injuries. So we were playing only 4 deep off the bench, but the Hawks bench scored 48 and the Pacers bench only scored 12. 48-12 was the differential between the Hawks and the Pacers on the bench. And you talk about Gorge Niang. This was his best game as an Atlanta Hawk. Terry Smith shot 5 for 9 for 12. Karis LeVert added on with 8 points. Capella 6. Only played 14 minutes, but after missing that Milwaukee game, it was a nice way to ease him back on the court. But when you got players like Obi Toppin playing 19 minutes, McConnell playing 26, Shepard playing 23 minutes, and they're not a single one of them has reached double digits, that is an atonement to how well the Hawks play defensively. Because, of course, you're going to have your stars like Siakam, Nesmith, Turner putting up numbers. Same with the Hawks with Young and Okongwu and Dyson Daniels. So when your stars are going to put the numbers on a regular basis, teams are going to look at the bench and see what they can do, how they can contribute. And when your bench can come right behind your stars and contribute just as much with less minutes, you're going to get these big key wins, especially at this point of the season. And I think as we go on to the next game that Saturday night, Hawks looking to sweep this back-to-back against the Indiana Pacers, we're going to see a similar story here. But a different start because as we saw in the game Thursday,
very different start, actually.
As we saw in the game Thursday, the Pacers started with a 10-point first quarter win. Mm-hmm. But on Saturday night, the Hawks won the first quarter by 20, 39-19, a complete offensive and defensive dominance in the first quarter for the Atlanta Hawks. And after that first quarter, people are looking at this game like, wow, the Hawks are going to come out here and dominate the Indiana Pacers and making a statement back-to-back win here in this little end of the weekend series. But then, of course, the Pacers came and rolled back. They scored 33 in the second, won the third quarter by 10, and then won the fourth quarter by 5. That set up an electric finish in State Farm Arena.
Very controversial finish, which we're going to get into in a little bit.
But before we do, we're going to look at the numbers here. Siakam started the game really bad. I believe he only had 4 points in the first half, but then finished.
Compared to last game, that was a big difference for the Pacers here.
And that's what the Bob Rappin was talking about and why the Hawks were off to such a good start in the first half was because Siakam was very limited, but then it was Pascal Siakam who brought the Pacers back in this game. Ended up shooting 8 for 19, 23 points along with 7 rebounds, but the Pacers bench made a different impact this game.
One player, really.
One player, really.
30 off the bench. I'm just not seeing that.
How crazy. I mean,
9 for 20. He took 20 shots, and this time the Pacers played 5 deep. McConnell didn't have any playing time. But I think this was a key focus for the Pacers when they were comparing Thursday heading into this game was saying, hey, guys, we can't let the Hawks bench outscore us tonight. Someone's going to have to step up and make a better impact behind these stars. But I don't think anyone expected that man was going to be Benedict Mathurin. He only
40 minutes off the bench.
That's insane.
Do you think that had anything to do with the fact that the Pacers realized that short players off the bench really kind of drove into their fatigue in the last game? So they just kind of forced minutes down this guy's throat. And it might have been a career-changing game for this guy because he is a lethal shooter. And he's a great guy, inside finisher, and he's good at drawing contact. Went to the line 5 times in that game, so just lethal inside score.
I think you're right, and he averages pretty good minutes this season, averaging about 31. But they adding 9 more minutes to your average in the season.
That's a big difference.
That's a big difference. That's 9 more minutes. That's a lot more breaths, a lot more patience up and down the court. But he made the absolute most of it, and he was a big asset in the fourth quarter that brought the game down to the wire. But if you go to the Hawks side, of course, Trae Young had a really nice night, 16 assists on Thursday, but tonight did a lot better on the scoring side. 11 for 24 with 36 points, shot 3 for 12 from 3, not too efficient there. But Karis LeVert turned around and had the best game as an Atlanta Hawk by far, shooting 10 for 17, 4 for 7 beyond the arc, adding 26 points behind his star point guard Trae Young. And you got to look at a Kongwu, 16 boards. And Quinn Snyder said after this game that Okongwu was the best player on the court that night.
Best rebounder, man.
Well, because especially in the fourth quarter, he talked about how Okongwu set up a lot of key second chance points because he was grabbing rebound after rebound after rebound, mainly in that fourth quarter. And when you're on the court with players like Siakam and Turner in the final minutes of the game, grabbing board after board is a hard thing to do, which is why Quinn Snyder gave him a ton of praises in the postgame. But there's a little situation in this game. The Hawks found themselves up by 2 with about 9 seconds left of the game, and I'm actually pulling the video up right here because this isn't something we can just talk about. This is something we have to watch. I'm sorry, I said 2. The Hawks were up by 3. This is after we made a couple free throws. Trae Young was at the line, 7 seconds left, drained both free throws. So 119-116 is the score. 7 seconds left. The Pacers are having to go the length of the court. And
this is quite a blunder from Pascal Siakam here. But while Chase continues to get a pull up, one thing I do want to say real quick is shout out to Dyson Daniels, 5 steals in this game too. And his turnovers, a lot of them really came in the fourth quarter when the Hawks really needed a momentum swing. And that's what Dyson does, man. He's a floor general, but he knows how to shift the game's momentum in an instant. And once he does and he gets that defensive edge on these guards, it does wonders for this young Hawks team. And that's what I love seeing from Dyson in this fourth quarter.
So here we go, 119-116, 7 seconds left. We see that Siakam inbounds the ball here, gets the possession right here. Now, if you see that this is very interesting because Nick Castle, the Pacers head coach, is setting up a position here where the Pacers can tie it because they have no timeouts. So you can't just score a quick 2 and foul. You have no time for that. You have no timeouts. So if you look at every Pacer jersey on the court, they are all beyond the arc, giving Siakam plenty of options to kick it out to 3.
Look at the leniency Trae is giving on defense.
That guy's way too open.
If you cut through Dyson Daniels, which he does, and you dish it out to the corner, because Trae Young draws into Siakam, you've got an open look right there to tie the game. That's just poor. That's a poor playmaking decision by Siakam.
And look at the Hawks' defense. Not a single one of them is having a care in the world about what the Pacers do inside. Their main focus is to make sure they lock down any pinpoint from 3. So you got to think Siakam's either going to take it himself or kick it out so someone else can take a 3 for the tie. But instead, with 3 seconds left, he is still well beyond the arc.
Yeah, just across the logo.
Gets by Daniels, dunks it with 1.3 on the clock.
Look at Dyson just letting go.
Also,
Dyson knows. Even Dyson's like, what are you doing?
Look at that little fist bump he gives after he scores. And then they give it to Trae Young, they foul, but then game's ultimately over. And then Bob Rathbun here, the situation, was just tearing Siakam a new one, asking, what in the world are you doing? Because that is just it is odd to see a veteran like Siakam just have a lack of awareness. And I remember we were talking about in our little group chat, we compared it to a little J.R. Smith moment because it almost gave off the same energy.
And that's why J.R. is golfing for Central Michigan now. Or was for a minute. But, John, what are your thoughts on this game, man?
Well, I don't have a lot of thoughts because, like I mentioned earlier, I'm always at a tournament this weekend.
That's true. That's true.
I was exhausted, so I didn't get to watch. But in the group chat, I was saying that Siakam had a dumb moment that I now I know why. So thank you for the visual.
Hey man,
Yeah,
and
yeah, there was like at least. Like based on the film, there was like as he was driving, there was like at least two guys got open for three, and
yeah,
like easily could have tied it. So
100%.
I don't know what Pascal's thoughts were. Um, I'm
Neither does
sure.
the rest
I'm.
of the league.
I'm sure we can find that post game. I'm sure we can find that post game conference somewhere on YouTube and try to get it. But I don't
I'm
know.
sure Siakam was scared to step into that press room because he knew the questions that were coming for him. And you better be ready to have an answer.
My favorite thing was after he scored to get that little fist bump. Like, yes, I just tied the game.
that just-
no, buddy.
That
No,
just
you
goes to
didn't.
show that he had no idea what the score was. He had no idea how much time they had. And why is Siakam taking it up the court anyways? As soon as
he did it.
As soon as he gets the ball in his hands, he needs to dish it out to a guard. He needs to set a screen. He needs to make his big body useful to set up that open look. But he just wants to be the guy to initiate the scoring opportunity for some reason. But yeah, and you want it to be an all-star over Trae Young? Yeah, whatever.
I've never seen Trae Young do that before.
Hey, but Joyner, if you want to get into the game that took place tonight without Trae Young and without Karis LeVert, who we've talked a lot about. Also, before I send over to you, Joyner, congratulations on Trae Young for becoming the second time this year he's became the Eastern Conference Player of the Week. The ninth time he has done that in his career. The Hawks went 3-1 throughout that week. Trae averaged, I think, 24 points, 12 assists on like 53% shooting. Very nicely done by Trae Young. But he didn't play tonight, Jordan. But regardless, the Hawks look good, Jordan. We dropped 132. What did you like in tonight's game?
I like the fact that Vic came back, shot 3 for 6 from the field, 2 for 5 from 3. Had a nice quiet 8 points. That's fine. It's his first game back in about a month. We'll give it. We'll let him. But like I said, no Trae Young. Assembly's Keaton Wallace had to step up to the plate. Didn't really have the best game, but you know what? Dyson Daniels, we don't. He's not that. He is, but like he's not really known. He's not really known on this team for scoring. But man, was he scoring? Shooting 10 for 14, 50% from 3, 25 points, 9 assists, 6 rebounds, and 2 steals. So adding more steals to his steal count total for the season. Okonkwo had 15 and 5. Zachary, who's been struggling the past couple games, had a nice 22 and 8 rebound game. He shot 9 for 6 from the field, 3 for 8 from 3, and then Mo Gay shot 50% from the field in general. Only missed 2 shots from 3 and 4 shots from the field total. So, but no, also no Karis LeVert for our bench. So of course Gorgeous Niang and Terrence Mann had to step up, and they did shoot scoring 18 and 19 points respectively. What are y'all's thoughts?
I mean, okay. Well, I'll get the throw. I guess I kind of started off with that at the start of this episode. Just you had 6 players score 10 plus in points. That's double figures from 6 of our guys. And I mean, this is just a beautiful display of team basketball. And you're looking at a Sixers roster today marked the 40th different starting lineup. That means they have gone through 40 different lineup changes in the span of 62 games. 64 games. Yeah. That is outrageous. And I'm not pointing fingers at Nick Nurse or the Sixers as a whole. This has been a season full of unfortunate events, injuries. I mean, Embiid's out for the year. Tyrese Maxey's done for. Jared McCain, who was likely going to win Rookie of the Year,
the happiest man in the league,
suffered a season-ending injury in December. So you really hated it for that young guy. And Nick Nurse. I mean, not only are these different lineups, just showing a result that these guys, they don't ever really play with each other on a consistent basis. So that chemistry factor is low, but you don't have guys to rotate in and out off your bench because almost nobody is healthy. So these guys have to fight the fight of fatigue, and that can wear your team down, especially down the stretch. But I have to give it to the Sixers team. They fought. They were down by more than 20 in this game. And in the fourth quarter, the Hawks started off that fourth quarter the same way they did the first three quarters, knocking down open looks from three. Dyson Daniels, one of his biggest factors was he kind of lost this art from what we saw early in the year, but his ability to drive in and use finesse moves. And then you had Zachary Richardson, who was amazing on the fast break. He was able to knock down catch and shoot threes. Of course, Vic came back, knocked down 2 threes. He didn't really have a lot of minutes. I'm looking at it right now. He only played 17 minutes. But Terrence Mann shooting 9 for 13, dropping 19 points. Beautiful display of inside scoring. The best inside scoring we have seen Terrence Mann display excuse me, this season with the Atlanta Hawks jersey on his back. But I got to give a huge shout out to the thorn in the Hawks side. That is Quentin Grimes, who dropped 35 points on 14 of 25 shooting, 5 threes in that game. And it was really the only reason why the Sixers made a final push in the fourth quarter to get on the Hawks' back and force us to fight with some urgency, because Quentin Grimes just couldn't miss. And he was doing these step-back contested threes, these little step-back post fades from the mid-range. He just wasn't missing. He was just connecting on all cylinders. But the Hawks got it going. Mohamed Gay, Chase, you talked about it when we talked about that first game. His rim protecting ability and how well that game has expanded for Mohamed Gay is nothing but a beautiful sight to see. And of course, when you're playing the depleted 76ers, Trae Young, who was dealing with a left quad contusion, and Karis LeVert, this is the game you sit those guys out, because the way that these young guys have developed and these guys we've caught from the G League, I mean, we've seen Keaton Wallace lead a Hawks team without Trae Young. We saw him do it in that NBA Cup game back in Boston. We saw him do it in that game at Chicago back in early January where he dropped almost 30 points. Keaton Wallace has the ability to become a floor general. He didn't really do that in tonight's game because he didn't have to, and that's fine. But it makes me comfortable knowing that if Trae Young has to be sat down, Keaton Wallace can be that guy to lead the young guys on the court. And Bob Rathbun says it all the time. Keaton Wallace goes from G League to NBA, G League to NBA, G League to NBA. This dude doesn't get tired.
It's what Mohamed Gay did for a while, and now that we'll see Mohamed Gay finally get a bigger role with the Hawks organization, hopefully Keaton Wallace gets that same treatment as well. But for me in this game, I think one of the biggest factors anyways was the rebounding, how bad we out-rebound them. 48-31 in general, and that goes back to just how scarce and thin this Sixers roster is.
No Andre Drummond.
And well, if you look at the Sixers roster as a whole, especially their starting five, actually just focus on their starting five. Not a single player in that starting role would be a starter. Really, anyone else, maybe other than Lonnie Walker. And I would say Quentin Grimes. However, he's never been a starter anywhere else in his career. He only averages 11 points a game. He just had a magical night tonight. So actually, I wouldn't even say Quentin Grimes. And Lonnie Walker's a stretch. So honestly,
Lonnie Walker has experience because back in the early
I'm talking about now. I don't know if you would find any of these Sixers players in this starting five and another starting five anywhere else in the league. And I say that truthfully, and that says a lot about what the Sixers are truly going through.
The Sixers. You can start on the Sixers.
Well, he is, exactly. But the point I'm getting at is because they're so thin, they're lacking size to a great multitude. And like you said, Andre Drummond, one of the supreme rebounders of this league, he was absent. So when you're having a team that has practically no size in the starting lineup or on the bench, and you're facing prime rebounders like a Kongu and Gay and Richese, you're going to get out-rebounded 48-31. And because the rebounding was so strong on the Hawks side, a lot of second-chance points were given to the Hawks, and a lot of second-chance points were taken away from the Sixers. But another thing that was prominent was how poor the Sixers' inside defense was, especially on transition. We saw multiple times where on transition, the Hawks would take it down the court, and they would be so worried about the outside shooters that they all forgot about the paint, and the Hawks players, Richardson, Dyson Daniels, would drive right in and take a dunk.
We kind of did that on the defensive side ourselves.
Well, you made a joke about it, Andrew, how the Sixers were so prominent and so worried about taking threes on the offensive end, and on the defensive end, they were so worried about defending the three. So really, on both sides of the ball for the Sixers, they could care less about the paint, and that's why you're 22-42. I know that the injuries are plenty, but I think the defensive strategy and offensive strategy is all out of whack. But we ain't a Sixers podcast, so we ain't going to talk about it.
There's a point when Nick Nurse was literally sitting in Gucci Row where fans were sitting. He wasn't even sitting with his assistant coaches for like a fraction of the second quarter. Bob and Dominique kept flashing. They kept flashing the camera over there, and Bob and Dominique's like, Nick Nurse, what are you doing?
Well, I won't get into it because this is a long conversation, but I'm going to save this for another episode because this is going to resurface. But
we play the Sixers again next week, so maybe that'll be a good time to talk about it.
Maybe so, because I'm going to give a little I'm going to. When the Sixers come to town again, when the Hawks play the Sixers here in a couple weeks,
next Monday,
be prepared. Be prepared for a speech. I'm going to give y'all a speech, and the speech is going to be titled. No, actually, you know what? You know what I'm going to do before the game on Sunday. I'm going to sit down in front of the camera by myself. It's going to be just me, and I'm going to post a 10-minute video to the YouTube channel, and it's going to be titled, Nick Nurse, You Deserve Better. And I kid you not, I'm going to do this because the coaching career of Nick Nurse needs to be studied.
How does it taste?
You know what? You're going to get to. So before we do our podcast on Sunday, I'm just going to post a 10-minute video. And it's going to be called Nick Nurse, Nick Nurse, You Deserve Better. And I hope Nick Nurse sees it. And I hope he realizes I do deserve better. And he's going to stand up for himself and stop being a pushover because you are you are one of the best coaches in this league. And you are getting tossed around like liver. And I am tired of it for him. And I'm just tired of it. And I'm just very passionate about it. Nick Nurse, you deserve better, buddy. Hit me up. We'll talk about it. Just me and you. I'm going to invite Nick Nurse on the episode. I'm going to send him an email. You think I'm joking? I'm going to send – you know what I'm going to do right now?
Oh, my gosh.
Are you actually?
Jordan, please save us, bro.
What's Nick Nurse's email?
Yeah, let me go check my contacts real quick. Good Lord.
Oh, my gosh. Okay.
Just buckle it up when you're done.
So we are currently sending an email to Nick Nurse. To get
you think I'm joking? I'm currently looking up Nick Nurse's email.
I don't think that's going to be just found on the web.
It's probably on the Sixers website somewhere.
Probably is.
I think it is. That's a good point. I'm going to the Sixers website.
It's got to be.
Jordan, I know we're kind of hitting that 50 mark. If you want to give your final thoughts while Chase gets in contact with Nick Nurse, feel free to do so.
You know what? I'm just glad that we're finally getting towards that 500 mark. Hopefully, we can continue this win streak. We got a game against Charlotte. That should be a win. But you never know with Charlotte.
It never is for us, man.
You know what? Then on Friday we got a game against the Clippers, which that's gonna be a tough game. There we go. Then we come against the net. Then we come against the Nets, and then the Hornets again.
Definitely some winnable games down the stretch here in this week and to start off next week before that Warriors game next Saturday.
Yeah, that Warriors game is pretty much the only game that really scares me.
Yeah,
but
yeah. But, yeah, man. Just to update you on what's going on over here, Chase is not able to find Nick Nurse's email.
Or I'm going to find it.
So this might be a dead dream, but I guess this will have to happen off camera. But we're going to hold Chase to this, ladies and gentlemen. You will see Nick Nurse on an episode of
I'm going to email Nick Nurse. I'm like, hey, this Sunday, I'm going to make a quick video talking about how you deserve better. If you want to hop on, do a quick little interview, feel free. And hey, so don't be surprised if next week you see a random video with Nick Nurse on it. You'll know what happened.
and that's going to be the day our episode blows up. Our show blows up. But thank you guys for tuning in to episode 19. We got episode 20 next week, ladies and gentlemen.
If Nick Nurse gets on the episode, by the way, I'm inviting you on. We're all just gonna glaze. It's gonna be called the video's gonna be called 10-minute Nick Nurse glaze session.
That belongs on a different website.
Should we buy like so many Sixers jerseys for it?
Yes.
He's like, hey, Nick Nurse, welcome to the 76ers podcast.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell him we're a Sixers podcast just so he says yes.
Oh my gosh! Welcome back to Talkin Sixers.
Sexy Sixers. Wow.
Okay.
Welcome
The 76ers. There we go.
70.
Hey, Phil. We could be like, instead of Philadelphia, it's Phil Me Delphia 76ers.
Feel me, Delphia. Oh my gosh.
Phil Me Delphia 76ers.
Yeah, he's not coming on now. He's gonna like research our podcast, watch our episodes, because we're a Hawks podcast, and then he's gonna watch the episode, watch to the end, and then hear what we're calling like the Feel Me Delphia 76ers.
It's gonna be. He's gonna open up the Zoom call or whatever. We're gonna be like in a steamy bubble bath. It'd be like, hey Nick, I wasn't expecting you to call this early, but welcome in. The water's fine.
Oh
Yeah, we didn't end this episode before we get flagged.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This has gone on.
We better end it before we're canceled.
We gotta end this episode.
But thank you for tuning in,
Thank
guys. Stay tuned for next week, episode 20. And hopefully by that time, the Hawks will be inched even closer to that 6th lead. Just got to pray the Pacers and the Pistons keep losing. But until then, this has been Talkin ATL Podcast.